Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Football Manager 24 series, Help Me Play Chelsea Football Club. And I appreciate all the help that's been given to me in the comments of the first couple of episodes. If you're looking closely, you'll see that we have actually executed on some of the tips that were recommended. After a little bit of frustration and challenge, we now do have proper logo packs installed, as you can see here. And we also have proper face packs installed, and we have proper kits installed as well. I think that's about it as far as the amount of time I'm going to spend downloading and extracting and unzipping files and deep inside the file structure of the game and my computer. But despite my anti-technology tendencies, was able to get those things installed, so appreciate the suggestions that many of you have given on them. Haven't added any skins yet, given that I haven't played this game seriously in several years. I kind of feel like I need to just feel my way through all of the different screens and figure out what the pain points are and what the information that I think is valuable is before I'll really even know what type of skin that I might want to kind of make that information more efficient. I almost feel like I'm too ignorant to have a skin at this point, but if those of you who are more experienced have thoughts, would love to hear them. If you're looking closely, you can see that we split our final two friendlies before the season started. We lost to the Netherlands squad AZ before beating the Greek squad Panathinaikos in our final friendly. And we're just a couple days away from our first Premier League game of the year against Man City. So that will certainly be a big challenge for this Chelsea squad. Again, it's not really about winning. This is about me just kind of trying to get comfortable with the game again, with a lot of help from viewers, hopefully. And then the thought is that in subsequent series, we will try to be more serious and more deliberate in how we do things. Certainly, looking at this Chelsea club, I don't feel by any stretch of the imagination that it's ready to compete for the Premier League this year. I've done very little in the off season, and with the moves that Chelsea had already made this past off season, didn't have a ton of financial flexibility to do things. But another point that if you are looking closely, you will notice that our transfer budget is smaller today than it was the last time we spent some time together. We had an original transfer budget of about $7.5 million. I expended that to around 11 million, selling off a few minor players, making some smaller transactions over the last month or so of game time. And with that money, we have made our first somewhat important signing. We signed Wilfried Gnonto, a 19-year-old Italian. We signed him for a total of 18 million. It was 8 million up front, and then there were some installments going forward that we'll be paying in future seasons. Felt like we were a little weak at striker. I don't know if Gnonto is the ultimate answer, but he's young. He's got some pretty impressive physical skills outside of his poor jumping reach, and part of that is given that he's only 5'7". So those are some of the negatives on him. Pretty good dribbler, finishing in first touch, good, hopefully headed to better in those type of skills. Good technique, decent work rate, pretty high determination. He was kind of valued in a $15 to $22 million range, so we kind of bought him in the middle of that range. But as I said, only 8 million cash up front right now, more to come in the future. I think he could conceivably see some time with the top squad this year. As I said, we don't have a ton of depth at striker and forward. And Gnotto's got some skill. So that's kind of the first, I won't say it's a huge move, but it's the most significant move we've made to bolster our team since we began. Quite honestly, my goal with this team is really to just survive this first season where I didn't have a lot of money and a lot of flexibility to do things, get to next off season, and then hopefully be able to, if I want, reshape this team a little more in my image with better knowledge of football, better knowledge of Football Manager, and a much more extensively scouted universe of potential players to add to our team than I have today here on August 10th, 2023. Now, I don't think this team will be relegated. I think it is very conceivable that I get fired, and I don't have the opportunity to do that next off season. But that's kind of the plan right now. I realize I haven't necessarily approached this the way I would normally approach a team that I was taking over in terms of really trying to churn the roster and make it as competitive as possible for that first season. Felt like I was a little handcuffed and just haven't spent much time on those things. In this episode, we are going to dig into the roster a little bit. And then I did promise in the last episode we would at least play that first game of the season, which could be a rough outing against Man City. But I did want to share that Wilfried is now part of the Chelsea organization. So since I haven't spent much time, or really any time to speak of in the first two episodes reviewing our squad and what it looks like, figured I would do that today. I'm sure that looking at this information, some of you will have some suggestions to me and probably feedback and disagreements with what my initial assessments are. So we're going to kind of go position by position and just see exactly what we have here with Chelsea. And part of the reason that I'm not necessarily expecting great things from the club this year is that Chelsea chose to loan our best goalkeeper, Kepa, to Real Madrid, I believe in August of last year. So the highest ability goaltender in the organization isn't even on our team. It looks like realistically Petrovic and Sanchez are going to be competing for us to be our starting goaltender this year. We have had some initial discussions with Lucas Bergstrom about potentially extending his contract, which is set to end at the end of June. Feel he is someone we might be able to build a bit around going forward. Marcus Bertinelli, his contract is up and he's going to be injured another month and a half, 2 months. He theoretically could maybe help us a little bit this year. You can see we put Jamie Cumming on the loan list. Other than that, and we're looking both at our senior team as well as the under 21s in these screens. I don't know that either Petrovic or Sanchez are long-term answers for us. Don't know that Kepa is either at the age of 28. He'll be back with us next year, which I think will at least give us a potentially better starting goaltender than we have today. And maybe Bergstrom in the coming years becomes a little more usable at the senior level. But I think this is an area that we need to focus on. I understand why they loaned out Kepa to a degree because of the amount of money he's making and the fact that there was some salary pressure here at the senior club level. But certainly feel that we are a bit weak relative to most of the top teams in the Premier League with what we have at goaltender this year, which is probably not an optimal position to be in. Turning to our defensemen, feel a little bit better about this position group. Looking at our left defenseman, likely Ben Chilwell will be our starter more often than not. Solid at marking and tackling, high work rate, high stamina. You can see pretty respectable ratings in a lot of the different categories, include many of the categories that are critical for success at his position. So think that he can be an important member of our team, not just this year and years to come. We've also got Mark Corsorella and Levi Colwill. Colwill, a little bit more of a young prospect who hopefully will be able to get some playing time too this year. You can see his transfer value is in the $100 million area in theory. So kind of like where we are with left defenseman. Malang Sarr is loaned out. We've also loaned out Ian Matson. Didn't think we were going to be able to get him a ton of playing time. So he is loaned out to LOSC Lille in the League One Uber Eats. That's about all I know about them in the French league, since I am somewhat ignorant of world football. Lewis Hall, 18-year-old, another player who is going to be joining Newcastle a year from now. Very high quality potential player, but unfortunately for us, Chelsea's already decided to move on from him. But feel that left back, we're not in a horrible position. On the right side, somewhat similar. Reece James and Malo Gusto likely to be getting most of the playing time in the early stages of the season. We also have Trevor Chalobah, who's going to be out another month or two, but certainly factors into the mix of guys who can play for us on the right side defensively. Don't know if the position is a huge strength outside of Reece James, but feel like he should be a pretty important member of Chelsea for many years to come. And then as we do potentially revamp this roster in the coming years, we've got some pretty valuable players here in James, Chalobah, and Gusto, where we can potentially get some money back in return as we start churning through this roster and potentially building a team more in our vision than the vision of current Chelsea management. And as you'd expect with most teams, a lot of people capable of playing center defense. James, as we've talked about, is going to likely be right defenseman for us. Wesley Fofana, a very important part of our future. Unfortunately, he at this point is going to be out 9 to 10 months with those damaged ligaments, so likely will miss the entire season, but hopefully he will be back next year and ready to contribute. We've got Silva. The issue is, what do we do with him next year? His contract is set to expire. He's wanted on a transfer already. He's 38 years old, still pretty fit, pretty strong, a very experienced veteran. I don't know, though, that especially with Fofana coming back, that we'll have Silva on the team next year. So it may make sense to try to extract whatever little amount of transfer value we can out of him. Cucurella, who we've already talked about, will be in the mix for playing time in the center. Axel Disasi is technically our starter alongside Silva right now, but that can change. Benoit Badiashile a guy who's coming back from an injury as well, but he's pretty close, only 2 to 4 weeks away, so he'll be in the mix. We've already talked about Chaloba and Colwill, who will be in the mix for some playing time as well. Ishe Samuel Smith looks like one of the higher potential young players that we have, only 17 years old. Hopefully we can ensure that he gets some good playing time this year with the under 18s, and hopefully continues along in his development. And then other than that, not a ton of significant players to speak of here. Turning to players who can play defensive midfield for us on the left side, not surprisingly, familiar names: Chilwell, Cucurella, Samuel Smith, Maatsen, who's going to be on loan. On the right side, similar, Reece James, Malo Gusto, so no real new names to speak of there. And then center defensive midfielders, this is where we do start to see some new names who will be playing in the middle somewhere for us, most notably Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, who both should have pretty significant roles for us going forward, along with Romeo Lavia, 19-year-old out of Belgium, pretty high potential player there. Leslie Ugochukwu is wanted by other teams. 19-year-old from France. We've got him signed for an extended period of time. Gonna probably struggle to get him real significant playing time, but didn't necessarily want to send him out on loan, although there are teams that want him, so that may ultimately be the right decision for us to make, but we haven't made that kind of decision quite yet. Don't have too long left in the window, and then we'll be stuck waiting till January, unfortunately, but feel like we can probably get him some occasional time with the senior squad and regular time on the under-21 team over the next few months as we try to figure out where he may or may not fit in with this team for the longer term. Turning to pure midfielders on the left side, Raheem Sterling likely to be the starter there, important player on our squad, one of the highest salary players on our team, and one of the most valuable players on our team, along with Mykhailo Mudryk, who should be seeing some pretty significant playing time. The 22-year-old from Ukraine has pretty good potential, very high value. Think he's going to be an important part of our team going forward. I do like with Cucurella the fact that he can play all over the field, makes him a valuable guy to have coming off of the bench. And then Noni Madueke, another younger player, probably going to struggle to get him as much playing time as we'd like this year, but given that he's 21 years old and a very top-end prospect, we're going to do what we need to hopefully ensure that he's developed. Ziyech is on loan, and as was noted in the comments to a previous episode, he's in the Turkish league this year and then set to join them permanently next year. So at least that salary will be coming off of our books a year from now, give us a little more financial flexibility going forward. Feel like we're not in a bad spot in terms of midfielders on the left side. Turning to the right side, familiar names, Sterling and Madueke can both play on the right side as well. A little bit of lack of depth at that position, so that's going to be something we'll want to think about going forward. And then central midfielders, not surprisingly, a ton of players listed here. We've already talked about Caicedo and Fernandez. Conor Gallagher, a guy who's going to be also in the mix for from some pretty significant playing time potentially. I don't think we've talked about Christopher Nkunku yet, and apologies in advance for those of you who are football experts and Chelsea experts who are being insulted by my butchering of most of these names, but it is what it is at this point. But he's going to be out for 3 to 5 months, so hopefully by the next transfer window, we'll have him back and can decide how to potentially integrate him into the team. Certainly could be someone who could help us going forward. You can see he can also play attacking midfielder anywhere as well as striker, so going to be an important player for us going forward. We've talked about Gusto, Cole Palmer also in the mix. We've talked about Romeo Lavia. And Ugo Chukwu, we've talked about him as well. Another guy with some potential, the 19-year-old out of Austria, Carney Chukwuemeka. And again, apologies for the pronunciations on these. Further down, 17-year-old Leo Castledine is a player that we think has a decent amount of potential as well, along with Tyreek George. So there's definitely guys in the Chelsea system that should, hopefully some of them will become important players for us going forward, or at least players that we can potentially sell off to generate a little bit of cash for transfers in the next window if we decide we're going to go in a different direction. But feel better about our midfielders and our defensemen in general than I do about our goalkeeping. Unfortunately, as we start moving forward to attacking midfielders and strikers, things will get a little hairier in my view. Familiar names here as far as attacking midfielders on the left side: Nakuku, who's hurt, Sterling, Mudryk. Nicholas Jackson, 22-year-old, should be an important player going forward. You can see he's listed as our striker right now in the admittedly imperfect lineup that we have. Gnonto, who we just talked about, picked him up off of the transfer list, and we'll do our best to get him some playing time as well. Armando Broja has been dealing with some injuries throughout training camp in the preseason, but he's healthier now. Turning to the right side for potential attacking midfielders, and a lot of options here. Not surprisingly, it's a lot of the familiar names that we have already talked about, and even in the center as well, familiar names that we've talked about with the general midfield positions as well. Last but not least, looking at the pure attackers, we talked about Nkunku, and when he is healthy, and hopefully 4 or 5 months, he could be a pretty important player for us. Romelu Lukaku is out on loan. Got to kind of figure out, I think, what we want his long-term role with the team to be. He's 30 years old at this point, loaned out for the year. Going to have to decide next year when he's back, 31, heading into the final year of the contract. Is spending $13 million on him the right decision, or should he be a guy that we look to maybe loan out next year ahead of a transfer to potentially whoever we loan him to? So that'll be something to explore. With Nkunku out, Nicholas Jackson, as we talked about, likely starting striker for us. Gnonto, as we mentioned, should be seeing some action, even though he's only 19 years old. Want to ensure that we get him as much playing time as possible. Again, for a team like Chelsea, I don't know that he is in our long-term plans as a big-time goal scorer for us, but he's got some potential, and I think certainly if we get him some significant playing time and hopefully help with his development, he may be a guy that we may be able to make some money on if we transfer him down the line. Broja, we talked about. David Washington, 18-year-old, given the lack of strikers we have, though, it's not inconceivable that he'll be seeing some time with the senior club as well. Angelo is guy with a lot of potential, 18 years old, on loan at Strasbourg. He's another guy who, in a perfect world, wouldn't have minded if we hadn't loaned him out, since he's not making tons of money. But unfortunately, that's not an option for us. So he'll be getting hopefully some pretty significant playing time in Strasbourg this year. But he could be a pretty important player for us on the front line in the not so distant future. So as I think about that team, as I mentioned, I think goalkeeper is our biggest weakness heading into the Premier League season, and it's probably something that good teams that we'll be facing, like Man City, are probably going to take advantage of. As I mentioned, feel a little better about our defenders and our midfielders, and then kind of view our attacking players kind of better than our goaltending situation, but not quite as good as perhaps our defenders. But if there are other views and other analysis out there, would certainly be helpful to hear your thoughts. I just want to thank everyone, or not everyone. Well, I do want to thank everyone who's given me ideas over the last week or so since we started this series and posted our first couple episodes. I want to thank everyone, but offhand, I'm sure I'm going to forget some names. So apologies in advance to those of you who have provided useful comments that I am not reacting to right now. But Stanley Rosella, Dude, Roundster1444, Chuck Thulu, Fake Name, YMe943, Leroy Palmer, and I know there are definitely some others who have given good thoughts that I can't remember the names right now, and apologize for that. But thanks for your thoughts on helping others who are watching the series, and most importantly, kind of helping me improve my skills and abilities to play this game. And I have spent a little time since the last episode with our primary tactic, which is the vertical tiki-taka with a 4-3-3 formation. As I mentioned, there wasn't a lot of science, and I mentioned this in previous episodes, not this one. There wasn't a lot of science that went into the three formations that we have. They were the three that received a thumbs up from our coaching staff, so there wasn't a lot of science that went behind it. I do agree with the suggestions that we've seen in some previous episodes where over time it definitely makes sense to figure out what type of style I want to play, what type of players I want to bring on the team, and then to build tactics and formations around that to maximize what we have and what we're doing. But I don't think I'm quite at that point yet to be able to even do that intelligently in terms of my knowledge of the game, my knowledge of the players that are on our team. So we're going to just continue fumbling through things for the time being. Have made a couple changes, which I'd love to talk about now, and I'd really love those of you who are more experienced to react to. Have moved kind of our base mentality to positive from balanced on the formation. I've just gotten some feedback that generally want to try to be a little more aggressive with your formations, and particularly with the fact that I think we're going to be giving up some goals. I know that there's an argument if we're going to be giving up some goals to really try to lock things down and prevent the amount of goals that we allow. But I honestly feel like our goaltending could be so weak that we don't necessarily want to flip that. But I think we're going to have to score some goals to win our share of games. So don't want to be completely conservative to start, but that can change. You'll see that I got a fair amount of players here where I've moved away from the standard roles in this formation. I kind of got some mixed views from those of you who opined on that. Some of you suggested trying to do that more often. Some of you also suggested, hey, dope, you don't know what you're doing at all. Why don't you keep things simple for the time being, which is very fair feedback. A few things that I have changed that I did want to talk about. Have a few less players in defensive oriented roles and a few more in supporting and or attack roles to try to hopefully generate a bit more offense. Chilwell, for example, this was supposed to be an inverted wingback position, but we think he's a pretty high potential guy in a defensive role in a wingback. And also, when I was looking at Chilwell there on the left side with his preferred foot being the left foot, I didn't know that he was necessarily a perfect candidate to be an inverted wingback. Silva, the role here for him is a stopper, and that's a role that he's pretty well suited for. I guess my question for those of you who are willing to opine, does it make sense to kind of have a stopper in the center defender area? My interpretation of the role is that he's going to kind of be moving forward a bit, challenging, trying to keep the ball out of the box. I guess my potential fear is that if he fails with that, all of a sudden there's a big hole behind him where we have pretty mediocre goaltending to make up the difference. So if you have any thoughts on whether kind of a stopper role is appropriate for him in the center there, would love to hear that. A few other players who we changed their roles. Caicedo, the default role, I think, for the position here was something that he was not particularly proficient at, and I can't remember what it was at this point. But kind of moved him up into more of an attacking role. One thing that I did also notice when looking at the analysis here was that it seems like we are a little weak in the right side of the field along the sideline here. My hunch is that there's probably something we can do to close off that weakness, but I do worry a little bit that we've got an outlet there with the players that we have in their skill sets and the formation that we're playing, that other teams may be able to perhaps exploit a bit. And any thoughts on how serious that potential gap is and what we may want to do it. I mean, you can see right here, nobody directly responsible for this area of the pitch, and clearly that's going to be a area coming up the wing where other teams will be trying to move the ball against us a decent amount of time. I think that's probably something I need to clean up. I don't necessarily know exactly how to do that, so any thoughts on fixing that would be appreciated. So if there's any feedback on the tactics and what else we should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, would appreciate those. I have not tweaked the Gegenpress or our fluid counterattack, the two other tactical styles that we felt we were well suited to play. If you tell me all that I'm crazy for what I've done here and I should just stick with the basics with these other formations, I'll probably be inclined to do that. But I'm not going to spend a ton of time thinking about them right now until hopefully I'm educated a little more on the topic by either comments that you leave for me or the potential painfulness of abject failure in the upcoming Premier League games that I put on display when we start playing the games that count. And hopefully, as I noted, I'll learn from those failures at the very least. And I think I did mention that with at least one of the better prospects in our organization, that they ended up at Stroudsburg, where we, of course, have that affiliate relationship. Mentioned in the previous episode that I had gone to the board and gotten them to approve some additional scouts, and we've continued to kind of refine our scouting efforts to improve our knowledge of the world and perhaps some players to look to sign. I don't know how active we're going to be able to be over the next couple of weeks before this transfer window closes, but hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit to help the team in January, and then almost a year from now, next summer, would expect to be hopefully very active in that transfer window. But back to the affiliates, I have also asked the board to set up another affiliate relationship with a somewhat lower level team than Stroudsburg, where I think that some of our younger players or some of our less high ceiling players may fit. I would assume they're probably going to approve that, although I am very new in this position, so perhaps they won't for that reason. But figured that another kind of good club to be affiliated with and be able to put some of our younger prospects on to ensure that they get a little more playing time in perhaps a more competitive environment than we're going to be able to provide them with the U18s and the U21s at times might make sense. So we waiting to hear from the board on that request as well. So I feel like with the review of the squad at a high level and a little bit of background about what I've done with some of the tactics, I've definitely given those of you who are inclined to share your thoughts with me a little bit to react to. So one other thing we're going to do this episode, and that's sim ahead a couple days to the road match at Manchester City to start off the Premier League season. I don't have very high expectations for us in that game, unfortunately, given my limitations as a coach and what I think is, as I've said, a roster that's probably a mid-table-ish type roster in the Premier League, if I'm being honest about it at this point. So we're going to sim through the next couple of days, play that game, hopefully be competitive in it. And at the very least, I think playing that game should give those of you who are more knowledgeable than I an opportunity to give us some more feedback on what we might be doing wrong here. And as we get ready for our match with Man City, as I mentioned, expect to spend most of the time in the custom vertical tiki-taka. Our coaches did recommend that we move to a more balanced mentality from the more positive one. While I think that probably makes sense in terms of trying to be competitive in this game, still want to try to develop this team and these players to have a bit more of a positive mentality in that formation. To, as I talked about, hopefully generate a little more offense over time. So it could cost us today, but we're going to at least start the game, despite the fact that we are up against one of the giants in the football world, being slightly more aggressive than perhaps recommended. I'm going to go with the lineup that we had talked about a couple of days ago. Hopefully we'll be able to see some interesting players in the second half when we make some substitutions. I'm probably going to be inclined to give Mr. Gananto some playing time, given that he has recently joined the team. We've got guys like Broha and Mudryk recovering from some injuries who look like they could use a little bit of playing time as well. Levi Cole will certainly in the mix. Lavia, a lot of good players. Curcurella on our bench. So going to be a struggle to get everyone the playing time that they need, especially because we won't be playing again for another week after this game. But it kind of is what it is. We are in the big leagues, and it's time to get this season underway. And as I've mentioned before, the day-to-day coaching is the less interesting part of the game to me. I like the team building, so we'll go with our assistant recommendation as far as the pregame pep talk. We've got nothing to lose here. Let's show everyone what we're capable of. And it is time to get things underway. So on the road against Man City and Pep Guardiola, going to be a tough matchup here for Chelsea as the season gets underway. And the match is underway here, basically only looking at the big potential goal moments. And unfortunately for us, it looks as if Man City may be working on putting something together here against us, which would not be shocking. Oh, off the bar. So a little bit of luck there for Chelsea, and we clear it out of the zone. Try to encourage the team here, but Man City with 3 shots to none by Chelsea here in the early going. May have an opportunity here, though. Oh, or it could be an opportunity. No, going the other way. And Nicholas Jackson with the first goal of the season for Chelsea. A nice assist there. Looks like some errors by the Man City team that led to that. Yeah, Matthews made the move, and then James right in front of Ake. Ake missed, and Jackson got the goal past the Man City goaltender. So a good start. There's certainly part of me that would go to a more cautious tone if I felt like the team was a little more capable, but I think we're going to need some goals here against Chelsea, which is why I didn't go cautious. Might have cost us there as Bernardo comes through for Man City, and we are knotted up at 1-1 here, less than 25 minutes into the game. You can see we only have 2 shots on goal, 6 shots on goal now for Man City. And they may be putting another rally together here, or maybe not. Maybe it's us. Caicedo to Jackson. Oh, nice opportunity there for Chelsea. Try to fire up the team here. Looks like Silva's a little banged up. Probably should have made a decision on what to do with him before Man City was in front of our goal here. Don't love potentially taking Silva out. Probably should have paused the game to make that decision rather than continuing to let Man City... Whoa! And Jackson off the... Jackson has been all over Man City in the early minutes of this game. Now that we're closing in on halftime, let Silva play things out. So 1-1, but if you look at the expected goals, Man City definitely putting some pressure on us, as you would expect. Tell the team to keep up this good performance, but it's probably going to be time to take Silva off. If I was a better and more competent and more engaged manager, probably would have done that immediately when We saw that he was hurting a little bit. He's got that calf injury. He wants to stay on, but the injury is affecting him. His game rating, one of the lower ones on the team at this point. Maybe time to make a move here. And we are going to make one switch here at halftime. We're going to take off the 38-year-old veteran captain, Silva. His fatigue level is still good in terms of his fitness, but he seemed to be a little more winded than anyone else over that first half. That calf injury also affecting him a little bit. So taking him out will give us an opportunity to give the young 20-year-old Levi Colwill, who is a hopefully very big part of Chelsea's future, an opportunity to get some action in the first game of the season and some significant action, hopefully being on the pitch for over 45 minutes. So we are going to make that one change here at halftime. And we are going to get the second half underway. Looks like Man City has also made a couple of substitutions. Still a 1-1 tie here. Colwill already picked up a card. Chilwell's taken an injury now. Who was going to try to slow things down there a bit, but let's see what happens here since we're kind of too late for us to make a move anyways. And Raheem Sterling with his first goal of the year. So a big move by Chelsea. With 63 minutes, we'll certainly move to a more balanced mentality after that, after taking a surprising 2-1 lead here over Man City. Really great one-man effort by Sterling there to put the goal in the back of the net. And we're to the 66-minute mark at this point. You can see that the team, especially Chilwell, who I think we had taken a slight injury and indicating he wants to come off with that tight hammy. So we've got to address that. But goals from Sterling and Nicholas Jackson here at the 66-minute mark. We could be in position for a very surprising result here on the first day of the season. Chilwell definitely will be coming off. We can probably pivot Colwill into that left defender spot, and it may be time to make some other moves too, with a few guys getting a bit winded here in our first truly competitive game of the season. And given that we're moving to that we have moved to a bit more conservative mentality with that balanced mentality, and we've got the lead, we're going to make some substitutions on the defensive side. We're going to take out a couple of veterans. Silva already out of the game, as we've talked about, but Reece James coming out and Ben Chilwell with the injury. James was getting somewhat winded. So Cucurella and Gusto in to hopefully bolster our defense over these final 30 or so minutes of the game. And then we also wanted to give our shiny new toy an opportunity to play. So we've brought in Wilfried Gnonto to take over for Raheem Sterling after he scored that goal to put us ahead 2-1. Give a pep talk to the players. Want you guys to make an impact. We're going to confirm those substitutions and hopefully make them in relatively short order and get back into action here. And we're now closing in on 75 minutes. Fortunately handled that kick. We're going to move to maybe too late. Move to a more cautious mentality after this. Might not be time for that, although it looks like we've got possession back from the powerful Man City squad. Oof, that was a real poor pass. That may cost us. Fortunately, it does not. And we're going to, with 77 minutes and the chance to make potentially another substitution or two, we would have been happy to get out of here with 1 point when the game started, but with less than 13 minutes of regular time left and a chance to potentially escape with 3 points against the defending champions, we are going to empty the bench, try to ensure that we've got the fittest players on. Madueke in particular has been out there for the full 77 minutes, and his conditioning is poor at this point as he's been coming back from an injury, so we've perhaps pushed things a little further than ideal with him. And for that final substitution, we're going to take Madueke off the pitch and let Mudryk, the young Ukrainian, 22 years old, get his first action of the season for us. So we're going to go ahead and confirm those changes and see if we can play out these last 10 or so minutes of the game. We'll move to a more... Oh, that was just horrible. Very poor play by our goaltender, very sloppy there, and it's going to give them an opportunity. But unfortunately for us, they were unable to capitalize on that opportunity. But 7 minutes of extra time here, so Man City giving every opportunity possible to try to get the win at home, and a somewhat surprising result for Chelsea. And you can see it was very lucky. Ton of opportunities for Man City. Their expected goals were 3.5 to the 1.5 that we had. Sometimes it is better to be lucky than good. Today, definitely one of those days. They outshot us 17-5. We saw that there were some real careless decisions by some of our players that gave them some opportunities. But generally those opportunities went just over the crossbar or off to the right or the left. Possession was even for the game, but certainly felt like through some of the highlights we saw that there were opportunities for Man City that they did not take advantage of. We really did not do much at all in the second half. Now, to be fair, we kind of tried shutting things down and moving to a more cautious and defensive tone after we got that second goal from Raheem Sterling. Was not a vintage performance, but we're coming out of a road trip to one of the expected to be top teams in the Premier League, and we're coming out with a 2-1 victory on opening day. Have to agree with the assistant recommendation. That was really special, guys. Nobody gave us a chance, but you played magnificently. Congratulations. And the team is pleased with that. And I'm surprised and pleased that we've gotten a W here in game number 1 of our Premier League season. As I said, better to be lucky than good. The only stat that matters popped up right there as far as an achievement. Won a game that we were clearly expected to lose, and we'll take it. And fortunately, the little nicks that both Silva and Chilwell took don't seem to be serious. We've got a week till our next game, and Silva just going to be out 1 to 2 days. Chilwell only needs a day. Caicedo made his Chelsea debut. Cucurella, 5 appearances away from triggering a transfer clause where we'll have to play Brighton 1.2 million. Post-match press conference about to begin. And the Premier League season is underway with a 2-1 opening day victory for Chelsea over Man City. And with opening day underway for most of the Premier League at this time, 4 teams still haven't played their first games yet. Chelsea, one of 5 teams that were winners in their first game of the season. Goal differential of 1, but we will certainly take the 2-1 win over Man City. Felt like we absolutely got lucky there. As I said, we gave them a lot of opportunities, and as I talked about earlier in the episode, not necessarily even the playing to win every game with this team, just trying to kind of learn what we have, get people more comfortable with the tactics and formations that we're using, and get me more comfortable with what we have with this team and what we need with this team. But certainly if we can get lucky and get wins while doing so, we will certainly take them. And before we finish the episode, I will take a quick look at some of the key stats from the game yesterday. The player of the game was actually from Man City, Bernardo, who scored the goal for them and had numerous opportunities with 5 shots, 6 of them on goal, with an 8.0 rating for the game. Best for Chelsea was Conor Gallagher, a 7.4. He had our assists. Good games also for Sterling and Jackson. That's generally going to happen when you put the ball in the back of the net. Axel Disasi was the only defenseman we had who played 90, or more accurately about 97 minutes. Good rating for him as well as Malo Gusto coming off the bench. Mudryk didn't even play quite long enough to earn a rating. The youngster Wilfred Gnonto, we're going to be following him very closely. Not the highest rating in the world for him in his half an hour or so of game time, but at least got his first Premier League action underway at 19 years old. Looking forward to seeing what he can do with us going forward. And between now and our next episode, I'll anxiously await your thoughts on the decision to can tell my American-oriented acquisition terminology is creeping in here to Chelsea, but the opportunity to make a transfer offer for Gnonto that was accepted and bring him on board. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And as I said, it's always helpful with the tactics that we discussed, as well as the team summary that we discussed. Any other thoughts that you have on those topics, what we should and should not be doing, always very helpful for me to hear. So until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.